Hello class, my name is CFuller and today I want to talk to you about Nelson Mandela. So many of you may not know this, but he's actually from South Africa, and I just want you to take away a sense of who he was and how he fought to get where he ended his life. He is no longer with us, unfortunately. He actually died within the past couple of years, and I want us to really take away his acts of peace in such a hard time where it was easy to turn to violence. And I think we could even apply some of his beliefs now to the system, because there is so much segregation among us still, and there's just so much disagreements going on in the nation right now. I think we could really look to him and just rely on what he did and how he was able to turn to non-violent ways in such a time it was so easy to turn to violence. So, Nelson Mandela was born in Rwanda, Mandela. He was born into the Manbabi clan, which is in the village of South Africa, as I mentioned. His father was destined to be chief, but he lost his title over a dispute with the local clan. That forced Nelson and his family out of that clan, and at the time Nelson was an infant. They were forced to go to a smaller clan in Okuna, where they lived and resided. This clan, as I mentioned, was much smaller and much more tribal. They lived off the land a lot more and relied on the natural resources to get by in life. They ate corn, pumpkins, beans, and other local harvests, and whatever they could really afford. There were no really formal roads. They relied on grassy areas and grassy routes to get in and out. The kids played with whatever they could make off of hand and off the top of their head, so they really relied on the land. So when Nelson was 12 years old, he was in primary school. He was actually the first in his family to attend school. And even though it was a small clan, they still did have classes and whatnot. But at 12 years old, his teacher actually gave him the name Nelson, and that is where it came from, because he was born as Rwanda. So he had a decent childhood, not the best, but not the worst as well. He was provided for, and he was encouraged to attend school. So the type of leadership, behavior, competency he had, I believe he championed change, and he displayed high integrity and honesty. How did he champion change, you say? Well, he had a defiance campaign. This campaign was a campaign of civil disobedience against 6 unjust laws. It was a joint campaign between the ANC and the PAC. They were focused on really just getting their voice out there and letting others know how what was going on in politics and the government and the law were not fair to African Americans and to a certain race or a certain level of people. None of it, what was going on, was acceptable, and that this was their way of getting it out there. And I think this goes along with championing change, because he had to stand up for something. He had to stand up and stand apart. He couldn't just go along with the flow and what others believed. He had to make a difference. And he did. He put himself out there on the line. And from it, he did take the chance of losing his freedom and enduring jail time, which he did many, many times. So how did he display integrity and honesty? Well, during his sentence from treason, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and continually he went from hospital ward to prison ward, in and out, different hospitals, different prisons. They just kept transferring him around. But he always refused a conditional release, as in a plea deal, really. He never went with them. He always stayed true to what he believed. He knew he had committed treason. He had actually left the country to go undercover for his Spear of the Nation cause, which was an armed struggle. And while he was out of the country, he took an alias as the name of David. He actually learned some military training and defense tactics. But since he left the country illegally and under an alias, that was treason for South Africa. So when he came back, he did have to serve jail time, and that was when he got sick. But as I mentioned, he refused to go down. He refused to be suppressed. He wanted to continue to fight everything he was faced with. He wasn't going to take the easy way out and just say, take a deal. He wanted his followers to know he was willing to do the time for what he committed. He was willing to put forth the effort and show everyone that he was not going to back down easily. So, his leadership style of power. I believe that he showed legitimate power and expert power. Legitimate power is just as what it sounds. It's the legit power that comes along with the position, where your boss has legit power because they are the boss. They are in charge of the company. Where your teacher has legit power over a classroom. It's her classroom, it's her students. Well, this is how Nelson went. He showed legit power because he did get elected as the South Africa's president. So that was strict laws, by the book power. No going against it. It wasn't people did elect him to be leader, but it was also when he was elected leader, he kind of just got grandfathered into that amount of power. There was nothing anybody else could do to take it away until his term was over. So he used this in every position, not just in presidency. When he was head of the African National Youth Congress League, he used this power as well. He always used it to, again, fight for his causes and his beliefs. So, expert power, what is that? Well, it's kind of the power you have to earn. It's the type of leadership you earn. It's not just given to you. It doesn't come along with the job. It is the respect, the trust, the honesty, the integrity you earn from your followers. It's what they want to give you, not what they have to. They want to give it to you. As president, he had the official power to make and champion the change. But because of his expert power, it didn't matter. People already wanted to follow him and listen to his ways. He drew people in by putting himself through the struggles and the hardships. He was able to relate with the people on a personal level, and he sacrificed everything for those people. He was able to speak to them and say, it'll be okay. I've got your back. I am literally at the forefront fighting for you. I'm not just going to sit here and say, let's go and make a change. Let's find freedom. Let's peacefully protest while I sit back in my home. I'm going to be the one leading that protest. And that's exactly what he did. He was out there. He did not sit back and just watch. He was included in the action. So, successes and failures. Well, as I mentioned earlier, he was in charge of the African National Congress Youth League, the ANCYL for short. This was a branch of the ANC. While the ANC was much more laid back and even though Nelson was peaceful, the ANC was even more so peaceful. They didn't want to shake the boat too much at all. So he established this youth league, and the goal was to transform the ANC into a national grassroots movement. He wanted to implement boycotts, strikes, civil disobedience, non-cooperation. The ANC did end up adopting these beliefs and was able to lead many peaceful protests under this. So that was one of the many accomplishments he came across, was creating this ANC to lead all these peaceful protests. Even though they did involve strikes and boycotts, they still did not involve violence. You can go on a strike without being violent. It is possible. And Nelson Mandela is to attest for that. Failures, well, as you've heard, he's been very involved in politics and just helping peace and helping create change. So that kind of led to a shortcoming in his family life. He wasn't quite so involved with his family. He spent more time helping others than he did helping his own family. While it is sad, and he is an amazing person and a great role model that I highly look up to, he still wasn't there for his family. It just is what it is. He ended up having 3 different wives and 4 kids. Two kids with his first wife and 2 kids with his second wife. And then his third wife he did not marry till he was older, so they did not have any kids. And then he did have a grandson who was actually ended up being in charge of one of his organizations after he passed. Well, how does he stand apart from the rest, you ask? What makes him different? Well, as I mentioned, it was a terrible time for South Africa. They were being suppressed. They were in slavery. They were not getting their voices heard. So he was the one able to get their voices heard. He was the one who put himself out there on the line. He did this all through peace. It didn't require violence. It didn't require shootings or standoffs or anything like that. He did it through peace. Even his time in prison, he was not protesting. He was peacefully serving his time, doing out what was right, getting his voice out there and his beliefs. So his ability to peacefully protest is what really set him apart from the others. He was actually a global symbol for peace. And then he also even won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Then he went on to be South Africa's first president, which to me is what really makes him stand apart from the rest. South Africa did not get their first president until 1994, and that happened to be him. So, what did I speak to you about today, class? Well, Nelson Mandela. And why is he so important? Because of his ability to peacefully lead in a very suppressed time. I really hope you guys are taking away a better understanding of him and his life. Thanks, good luck, and have a great day.